listener, welcome to another exciting edition of Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. Last week, we had an enriching conversation with INEC, Gender Advisor at Search for Common Ground Nigeria, and Comrade Babatunde Kwaja, a democracy, governance, and policy expert. Together, we explore the topic, balancing policy innovation with democratic principles, and examine how progress can align with fairness, inclusivity, and accountability in Nigeria's democracy. This week, we shift our focus to strengthening electoral laws. How can we refine the legal frameworks guiding Nigeria's elections to ensure transparency, fairness, and credibility? What gaps exist, and what steps can be taken to address them? Stay tuned as we dig deep into this critical discussion on building a stronger, more accountable electoral system. And it is Saleh Akin Delero. Thank you once again for joining us on Electoral Reform Hour. This program aims to foster inclusive dialogue among citizens from varied backgrounds concerning electoral reform and constitutional amendment. It also aims to enhance public understanding and awareness regarding electoral reform and to compile and present citizen-derived recommendations to the National Assembly and INEC for consideration. This program is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from the MacArthur Foundation. Now, strengthening electoral laws is a crucial step in deepening our democracy in Nigeria. Despite progress in recent years, the country's electoral process continues to face challenges that threaten its integrity. Issues like vote buying, electoral violence, and result manipulation remain prevalent, undermining the credibility of elections and reducing public trust in democratic institutions. Weak enforcement of existing laws is a significant problem. Many offenders go unpunished, emboldening others to engage in similar misconduct. Ambiguities in legal provisions also create opportunities for manipulation, while concerns over the independence of electoral bodies further complicate the situation. These issues raise questions about how Nigeria can achieve a truly transparent and credible electoral process. What more can be done to address these challenges? How do we ensure that electoral laws are not just on paper, but are effectively implemented? What roles should stakeholders, including citizens, play in strengthening these laws? To help us explore these questions and chart a way forward, we are joined in the studio by Dr. Chris Kwaja. Dr. Chris Kwaja, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Good morning, Nigerians.
Now, for your information, Dr. Chris Kwaja is the Country Director for Nigeria at the United States Institute of Peace, USIP. He is an expert in governance, democratization, human rights, and security. He has held notable roles, including chairperson of the UN Working Group on Mercenaries, and contributed to Nigeria's National Livestock Transformation Plan and Medium-Term Development Plan. Dr. Kwaja has also served as Commissioner for Local Government in Plateau State and has authored over 100 scholarly works. Once again, you're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's kickstart this program by this particular question, because we know that we have an electoral law already. So in your opinion, what specific sections of the Nigeria's Electoral Act do you think required urgent amendment in order to ensure inclusivity, transparency, and fairness in the electoral process?
Thanks. I think before I delve into that question, I just want to quickly place three key assumptions on the table. The first is that without election, there can't be leadership. So election is the instrument through which leaders emerge. The second is that where you have credible elections that are peaceful, elections that are accepted by a vast majority of the people, then you are on the path of enthroning peace. And the third assumption is that election is a critical building block for nation building. And when you see these three pillars in any country that celebrates good governance, they are all active. Now, with respect to Nigeria, we have the Electoral Law 2022 as amended, 14 pages, and all it does is to provide specific points about the commission itself, that's INEC, the expectations of Nigerians in terms of the rules of INEC, how INEC should conduct elections, the role of political parties, and the role of the judiciary in adjudicating on election disputes, which you see in the context of election tribunals, the appeals, up to Supreme Court. Now, what are the key lessons learned for us as Nigerians from 1998 to date? It's very clear that we have a problem with adjudicating electoral disputes. Because electoral disputes are not well adjudicated, you have voter apathy. You have discontent with the outcome of adjudication processes where citizens believe that justice should come to them and that this justice should be predictable, that where you know there's an infraction, the dispensation of justice should be as easy and clear as possible. Unfortunately, two key issues now have emerged in Nigerian election in our history. One is this whole question of go to court. Why are people asked to go to court? There are two reasons. You are asked to go to court either because the court is supposed to give you justice, or some persons or group of persons have hijacked the court processes and they know that when you go, you will not have justice. They rig elections and ask you to go to court. And the court process is so expensive, you need to hire a lawyer, you don't have a specific timeline within which election cases will end. Some go for as far as 2 years. You are spending money. So there is a huge cost associated with court processes, which means adjudication or the search for election-related justice is not for the poor, it's for the rich. The second is that you now have individuals either in the House of Assembly, in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, or governors that are either called appeal court senators or representatives or Supreme Court governors. And how did you get here? 2 million people go out to cast their votes only for them to come back and get this statement or verdict from 5 persons to say Mr. A won the election, give him. And at the end of the day, what happens? People have even come out to say, these individuals you even asked to go and be sworn in are not the people we voted for. It means there's something fundamentally wrong with Part 8 of the Electoral Act. And Part A of the Electoral Act talks about determination of elections, election petitions arising from the elections. So there is a need to take a second look at the potency of Part 8 of the Electoral Act as amended, with a view to ensuring that what comes out of court processes are products of the wishes and expectations of the people. You recall that in this same country we had a situation where someone was not even on the ballot and he was sworn in. You also have someone who was number 3 or 4 on the result, number 4, and he is today a governor. Now, what do you expect from people who are concerned, dissatisfied, and are expressing discontent with the outcome of court processes? Voter apathy becomes the first. Second is that for those, they might decide not to go out to vote, but take on other extra legal or judicial means of making such states ungovernable. And Imo is an example of the situation we've seen where citizens make the state ungovernable. And at the end of the day, the governor is now expected to use brute force, governing by force. It is unfortunate that you have a situation where people go out there, vote, but at the end of the day, they don't see themselves being stakeholders. The second...
Before we go to the second one, let's quickly dwell a little on this particular one, the part A, which you are talking about, which is about the adjudication.
Yeah.
Now, the law is very clear, and most of the judgments are also based on the law. So what and what do you think can be done to ensure that we have the spirit of the law and not just the letter of the law, being brought to bear when it comes to education of election matters?
Now, one of the most important points we need to take note of is the role of the Supreme Court. And that the Supreme Court is not just a group of persons that should look at a case from just the legal point. They are supposed to understand the nature of their society. They are supposed to adjudicate or give verdict in a way that keeps the society together. Now, what is the value of having 7, 8, 9 persons decide on the fate of 2 million people? While in fact, rather than issuing such a verdict, calling for a rerun, where the people go back and exercise their rights to vote and be voted for, and a winner that is a product of the decision of the people emerges, and it gives credibility to that process, rather than having such rights taken away from the people. So that's one major aspect that we need to really look at with a view to addressing, to ensuring that citizens have their rights unhinged, uncensored. And that is one of the ways you can really invest and build in our democracy, such that every citizen knows and recognizes the fact that it's my right to vote. And if I go to vote, if there's a problem with that vote, there is a court that will determine whether or not we should still go back to vote. And that going back to vote is the best way to ensuring that people know the value associated with the votes of citizens. But today, the implication is that many so-called leaders or elites, as they are referred to, don't even value the rights of the citizens, because they know whether they rig or whatever, there is a court that will say Mr. A has won, go and swear him in. Unfortunately, that's where we are today, and it doesn't augur well for our democracy. There is no country I've seen that is applying this kind of justice.
All right, you're going to tell us the other aspects apart from the part A, the aspects which you think we need to pay attention to in the sections of the Nigerian Electoral Act.
I think the other section, the first section itself, part 1 of the law, there has been concern about the nature of the commission itself, of INEC itself, how it emerges. And this whole question of the independence of INEC has been a major source of concern. that it is not just enough to mention independence on paper. It should be seen both in terms of the nomination of the candidates. In some countries, and Ghana is one example, the president just wake up and announce names of persons to say they are members of INEC, because that on its own is a manifestation of huge executive control and influence over the commission. Because the question you ask is, who are these people? Where are they coming from? Who nominates them? Okay, for the Rex, how did they emerge? Many of them were nominated by governors or friends of the president or through their own personal connections. So that's an example of individuals that have emerged to be Rex. And the same applies to national commissioners and the INEC chairman himself. And people are saying we need a process that is devoid of executive influence and control, because he who pays the piper dictates the tune. And when the tune of the music is akin to, or is being played in a way that shows that it resonates with whoever appoints such an individual, then you have a real problem to deal with. So the independence of INEC remains a major source of issue. But we have seen examples of instances where individuals have been appointed by the same executive and they've operated above board. But the question is, how many? We were in this same country in 2010 when election was conducted, and we had, when an INEC chairman was appointed, and by the virtue of the 2011 elections, we saw an incumbent losing an election, having elected someone to be INEC chairman. But where else have we seen such an example? So it's also there's a need for a balancing act. So we need to look at how well and best we can deal with executive control of the emergence and operations.
Now, talking about the Independent National Electoral Commission, which you just mentioned, what legal or institutional changes would you recommend to enhance the independence of INEC and prevent external interference?
It's not just about legal. It's also about the individuals. You can have the legal construct, the framework, but if the individuals are bereft of the integrity, then you still have a real problem to deal with. So it's a balancing act between the legal, but the legal should be there, one in terms of ensuring that the emergence of INEC chairman and other members of the commission should not be such that presidential control of that process is so huge. No. So that's one area that we need to deal with. In some, you can as well make it open. People should express and show what they have to be able to be appointed, and you screen them. You have a screening process that is also very clear, transparent. If you know you have the credibility to deliver on elections, present yourself. And that screening process goes through goes through all modalities that we have in the country. I think once you have that kind of situation, it will be easy to deal with some of these problems we're talking about. Because today, people are just waiting. Very soon, the tenure of the INEC chairman will be over, and the people are waiting. They are just waiting for the next person. People are just waiting for the next person that will be the chair of INEC, and they know that it's the president that will appoint such an individual.
All right, a lot of people have also talked about the issue of electronic voting in Nigeria, which We've had a lot of court judgments that seem to be at variance with each other over the use of the electronic voting. Now, considering the evolving role of technology in elections, how feasible is full electronic voting in Nigeria?
Electronic voting is feasible, is practicable, and is doable. All we need is the political will and the goodwill of everyone. The goodwill on the part of the staff of INEC and other ad hoc staff that have the responsibility of ensuring that we get it down to the grassroots. Because you hear of, oh, Beavers has failed, you hear of IREV has failed. These are things that we should be above board in doing at this time of our national life. It's possible. If the banks are able to deal with technology in terms of how they do their business, if immigration, customs, and all that have been able to deal with technology in ensuring that technology becomes an enabler for them to do their work, how come INEC is not able to fully optimize or maximize the same capacity that technology is bringing to the table? So I think it's doable. It's just for INEC. When I say INEC now, I mean the entire staff from the chairman down to the last person there, to be committed and tell themselves the truth that we must deliver on elections that are credible.
Now, beyond INEC and INEC officials, experts have also, opined that there are so many other threats from the cyberspace apart from internal workings of INEC. Now, what safeguards must be implemented to mitigate cybersecurity threats if we are to go into full electronic voting in Nigeria?
Data hacking is a major issue in the cyberspace, and it's not just peculiar to INEC. If they are complaining about hacking and all that, how are the other actors using technology? So you learn from them. You look at what can adapt to your environment, what you can do to overcome some of the obstacles to those ICT-related challenges that you envision. And once you do that, you'll be able to deal with elections. You can't sit down and say because people are hacking or there is cyber insecurity must be there, should be there. From day one that INEC started or conceived this idea of going technology, they should know, or it should know, that there are threats and the risks and mitigation factors should have been dealt with. And that is why you also need to appreciate the fact that ICT solutions are not just, it's not just one. The ICT itself is a whole market. There are different suppliers depending on what you want. If you go for cheap technology, then you have technology that can easily be hacked. So the choice is for INEC. But our advice is INEC should do a proper analysis of the market with a view to ensuring that whatever ICT solution it decides to adopt, it must have also worked out the possible mitigation factors. In research, we talk about limitations of research as well as strategies for mitigating those limitations. So it's the same thing INEC should do. So it has no reason to complain about risks when it comes to ICT.
All right, coming on to one major issue with most Nigerians believe is a very, very major threat to elections and electoral processes in Nigeria. That is the overt monetization of the electoral process. Now, what practical steps do you think can be taken to strengthen the mechanisms for monitoring and regulating campaign finances, particularly during party primaries where we are always told that thousands of dollars have changed hands?
When you have a cash economy that fuels and sustains the monetization of elections, then you are just talking about Nigeria. Attempts were made for Nigeria to go cashless, and the whole idea is that when you go cashless, you'll be able to track the activities of merchants of elections. But that process was politicized. And because it was politicized, we did not solve the problem. But we must solve the problem. You can't talk about having cash when you know that this cash comes from the banks. It means the Central Bank of Nigeria is also not doing its own job. It means EFCC and the DSS are not doing their own jobs when it comes to putting enough surveillance in place to monitoring the activities of these merchants. These monies move in cars, helicopters, boats, keke napep. They go to people's houses. They are stored in places where people know. These monies are given to people on the day of elections. Policemen and women are standing, watching where monies are given to voters. It's there. So you can easily track. We are not talking about rocket science. Even rocket science, people study rocket science. So rocket science is not something you now say, oh, we can solve. Not to talk of really human issue of monetization of elections. It's the easiest thing to do, unfortunately. But because we are not committed to dealing with it with the immediacy and seriousness that is required, we keep going back to cycles or rigmaroling on it. Sanctions, and the former vice president of this country, Yemi Osibanjo, said, impunity thrives when there are no sanctions. We've not seen INEC prosecute one individual on money-related elections. INEC has been shouting, oh, we need to deal with this issue. The law is there.
I've also heard INEC say several times that the prosecution aspect doesn't belong to them.
Yeah,
but there's nothing they can do by way of that.
But you have a law on it. So if you have a law on it, INEC has the mandate of conducting elections. There are infractions on these elections. Take these people. Your prosecutional power starts from showing the police, handing over reports to the police to say A, B, C, D, E people operated above the threshold and ceiling on money that we pegged. Who pegged the money? INEC pegged it. So it cannot turn back and say, we cannot prosecute. So if you can't prosecute, why did you peg an amount of money as ceiling for candidates and political parties? You did that because you had the power. So when you do that, you hand over such people to the police.
Okay, that goes more on the issue of spending limits by
Yes.
the candidates and the parties. Okay, but now we're talking about even the issue of vote buying, primaries, election days, and so on and so forth.
These are all election-related offenses that are within the confines of the powers of INEC. Because the moment you carve a place and call it a polling unit, a voting point, that place becomes the property of INEC. Whatever happens within that area, INEC has the power. And that is why the presiding officer has specific powers within that area. It's like a pilot in an aeroplane. The moment you mount any aeroplane, as long as you are in that plane, the pilot becomes a police officer. He can order your arrest in that aircraft because he's in charge. So the presiding over can direct a policeman or woman to arrest any individual seen undermining the process of that election on election day. So that power is there. The problem is how INEC is able to activate this power.
All right, it's still the Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria, and you can be a part of this live program by sharing your comments via the social media platforms. On X, it's at PAACA_NG, that is at PAACA_NG, at PAACA_NG, with the hashtag #Electoral Reform Hour. And you can leave your questions and comments for us on Facebook via at PAACA, that is at PAACA, and also on our WhatsApp number 0816 803 808 3424. Once again, the WhatsApp number, and that this is for WhatsApp only, please, 0816 808 3424. Our telephone numbers are 0915 091 0482, 0915 091 0482, and 0915 091 0483, 0915 091 0483. The phone lines will be open for you soon. Don't go anywhere. We'll take a break.
Stay tuned to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We'll be back shortly.
Are you ready for change? Join the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PAACA, for the Electoral Reform Hour. This program amplifies electoral reform campaigns and provides citizens with opportunity to make meaningful contributions that will strengthen our electoral process.
I think what we should do and what we've been advocating for is to find a way to harmonize all the biometrics we've been doing in the country so that we have one. If you have your NIMSI card, for instance, it should be able to carry all the data, social security, like it's done everywhere. So when you vote, everything about it is there.
My position is that the result, substantive, the election ends at the polling unit. Once the presiding officer, in the presence of polling agents, in the presence of security men, in the presence of all other stakeholders, including some of the people that voted, counted the scores of candidates and parties openly, entered the results into Form EC8A, and snapped it, that is the real result. And it is that goes into IREF.
Let's embark on the path to significant transformation and well-informed decision-making together. As the National Assembly, INEC, and other stakeholders work towards improving our electoral process, you too can be part of the decision-making process by participating in the radio program.
You are on to Comrade Abdullah Mohammed. I'm calling for Bida Local Government Area Council of Niger State. I'm advocating to federal government or the member constitute to look into this electoral reform. That why should a member be in the house to speak the truth? At the end of the day, what we continue receiving or hearing is to suspend that member and to tell him to join any political party of his choice. Who then are we expecting to come and tell us the truth?
This is Brian Orator from Latte ID State. My idea is that INEC should stand firmly as an independent body. Secondly, the local government election should be conducted from the INEC, not from the national level.
Remember, democracy is for the people. Together, we can make a difference. Let your voice be heard in the Electoral Reform Hour, where every opinion matters. PAACA, making democracy work for the people.
Thanks for staying tuned. We are back with your favorite program, Electoral Reform Hour, on the network service of Radio Nigeria.
All right, it's still Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. Before the break, we started exploring how to strengthen electoral laws and enhance Nigeria's democratic process with Dr. Chris Kwaja, Country Director for Nigeria at the United States Institute of Peace. And we told you that when we come back, we will be throwing the phone lines open for you. Yes, this is the time for us to pick your calls. 0915 091 0482 and 0915 091 0483. That is 0915 091 0482 and 0915 091 0483. Hello. Hello. Please, can you speak louder? I can't hear you. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for being a part of the program. Your name, please, and where you're calling from.
Thank you for having me. This is Awaka Musa.
Oh, Awaka Musa from Bida, is it?
Yes, sir, from Bida, Niger State.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Mr. Everyone is not around today.
No, he's not on seat today.
He's not on seat today. You have done wonderful at things.
Thank you.
Thanks to your guest, he has made a wonderful deliberation and analysis
Thank you.
of the electoral process.
Thank you.
And the question I want to ask, he has even overruled the INEC for not having any excuse in making mistakes. But it has become a recurring decimal. I don't know why. Maybe INEC is not doing the proper SWOT analysis on how to eliminate the weaknesses and come up with their own strength on any election. Because you see, election is conducted today, they will make the same mistake, and another election will be conducted in future, they will still make the same mistakes. So I think something needs to be done in appointing the INEC chair and other resident electoral commissioners, so that it should not be vested on any politician or Mr. President who has interest in his party. I think there is need for chance to be given to civil society to be nominating INEC chair and resident electoral commission to remove partisans in our political system. If you look at today, politics in Nigeria is losing voter apathy on daily basis. You elect somebody today, he don't deliver good economic governance. But since he has money, and we take the case to the ballot chamber, the elections are not determined by ballot board, but by the ballot chamber. I think a lot needs to be done to bring credibility into the Nigerian election. And when we can bring credibility, it will go a long way in giving us sustainable economic development in the country. Not quite long. We see a bill that is under deliberation is saying that even will not fall, they are going to pass the bill. I think this type of statement should not come out in a democratic setting. There is need for us to ensure that the governance in Nigeria is properly democratized. Thank you very much to your guests for wonderful discussion.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was Abubakar Musa, all the way from Bida in Niger State. Like I said earlier on, if you want to call, for those of you just joining us, the numbers to dial 0915 091 0482 and 0915 091 0483. You want to say one or two things to what Abubakar Musa just said?
I think thanks Abubakar Musa for that wonderful insight and concern. It reinforces the point I made around sanctions.
Sorry, can we quickly take this call? Hello?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome to the program.
Yes, Michael Grana is on the line with two people in the house.
Michael Grana, you're calling from where?
From Abuja here, Kubwa.
Oh, all right, go on.
Our guy in the house, I'm grateful to you how God has made you.
Thank you.
The point is this. There's no election in Nigeria here, as long as INEC is concerned. INEC is working for their masters, who actually elected them into this office. Because as it stands now, there's no truth in Nigerian elections. The only thing I would advise that will make Nigerian election to be useful is at the polling unit where the voters are carried out. Is immediately the voters put in their votes, is counted immediately, recorded, and transferred into the systems worldwide. Aside that, forget about the elections. There is nothing you can get from there. That is what I know about it. Thanks so much, sir.
Well, Michael Gala, you sound so pessimistic. Wow.
No, I think
Good morning, sir.
Sorry, somebody's on the line. Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, can we meet you, please? Good morning.
I am Alaji Brian Gao from Badegi in Niger State of Kwaja local government. Kwaja local government of Niger State.
Alaji who?
I am Alaji Ibrahim Gao.
Okay, Brian Gao. All right, go on.
In Kwaja local government of Niger State.
All right,
okay,
go on.
Sir. The topic of your discussions today is very good.
Thank you.
You know, in every nation, the development of democratic activities started from Electoral Commission. But now, it is very wonderful that in Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission, to me, is the causes of all political crises in Nigeria. Because if they did or they act on the name given to them independent, there will never be electoral manipulation or election practice in Nigeria. But now, as they are called independent, it seems that, or it means that no government, elected or non-elected, have power to put their hands in the election process. But now, you will find in Nigeria, you will find many election crises. Why? It is good. Our independent electoral process should wake up and do the needful. Let's have peace in Nigeria. We hope Nigeria democracy with electoral commission, Nigeria democracy will reach maturity age. Already it has reached maturity age, but not to the standard we want now. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Ibrahim Gao. Hello? Okay. No call now. Before we take any more call, maybe you want to respond to some of what they are saying. And I think one issue everybody is talking about is this issue of INEC. Michael Gala said INEC is working for their masters, not for the masses. He also wants a worldwide transmission from the polling units because when it comes to IREF, it doesn't stay there. And Abaka Musa still said the same thing, that INEC doesn't have any excuse whatsoever, but the issue of appointment should be looked into. And Ibrahim Gao is still saying the same thing, that he believes the electoral commission is actually the cause of all problems, electoral problems in Nigeria.
And I thank them for the concerns expressed. Yes, INEC does not have any excuse to give when it comes to elections. If you are appointed to serve in any public office, the moment you feel you cannot do that work, resign. You cannot be in that office and be complaining. Your job is to solve a problem. You were not given the job to be a complainant. Unfortunately, not just INEC. Many of our public officials are like that. They collect their salaries, they enjoy the perquisites of the office, but when you meet them, they have 100 complaints with less than 5 achievements or milestones that they have recorded. Now, I've had reason to ask some of them, I said, so what are you doing there? Resign. If you resign, people with the passion, the vision, and the commitment that are patriotic will do the job. And there are many instances of people that are doing the job. So for INEC, be you REC, be you National Commissioner, be you INEC Chairman, be you an ad hoc staff, the moment you see the environment as one that is not good enough for you to put in your best, raise the alarm. It is better you resign honorably than be there and you close that space for other people that might come and do what is right. Unfortunately, people don't resign because everybody is looking at what? Stomach infrastructure. And that's why we are where we are with respect to elections that are compromised, leaders that are emerging from compromised electoral processes and are beholden to themselves, not Nigerians. So a politicized INEC cannot solve our problem. And part of the politicization of INEC that we see is this whole question of the absence of sanctions where infractions occur. When you have sanctions, and we know that when people don't do or play the game according to the rules, they are shown the way out, everybody will sit up. But they know today that regardless of what happens, nothing will happen to them. The politicians will continue, they will say, go to court. When they go to court, we end up with what? Supreme Court governors, Supreme Court senators, Supreme Court members of House of Assembly, members of House of Reps. That is not the way to go. IREV represents a major innovation on the part of INEC. My prayer is that the INEC chairman and his team will invest their integrity on that IREV and ensure that it works. Because what it does is that it strengthens transparency. It shows citizens that we are transparent in transmitting election results from the polling unit up to the collation center.
All right, we do have another caller on the line. Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. You're welcome.
Yeah. My name is Mr. Chinomso Onya. I'm calling from Giga, the ancient city of the Nupe Emirates,
You're welcome.
in Niger State, Nigeria. My regards to your guests in the studio.
Is hearing you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've listened to his lecture. In fact, I call this lecture because I learned a lot. But the question what strikes my heart when I've been hearing his comments and the comments of other contributors, those that have been calling, what came to my heart is, where is the Resident Electoral Commission of Adamawa State, the former Resident Electoral Commission of Adamawa State, the controversial Resident Electoral Commission of Adamawa State that made some kind of pronouncement on the fake results, governorship electoral results? Where is that man? What is the outcome of his judgment? That is what the question that has been begging for answer in my heart. Except such kind of people are being punished. After election, there are offenders, those that have defrauded INEC, more especially INEC staff, President Electoral Commission that have defrauded INEC, that have painted INEC in black light. What offense have INEC did to them? You find out that in this country, anytime anybody drags INEC to court, election, they finish election, okay, INEC, someone that feels agitated, he took the case to court. You find that INEC will come and support the other person that won election. I don't know if you understand where my question, where I'm going to.
Yeah.
So I started keep on asking, is it that INEC is supporting a fraudulent act, or is it that they are in the middle, or what? So my stand is this: except INEC repair their house. You look at there was an appointment from the federal government on resident electoral commissions. So one particular person, I don't want to mention the name, one particular person that is an SA to the president, was appointed as a resident electoral commission.
Okay.
Where does that happen in Nigeria, in the whole world?
Okay, thank you.
So except INEC repair their house, this issue of electoral malpractice.
Oh, thank you very much, Chino Sonia. Hello. Okay, I think the call just dropped. Well, you did mention the issue of sanctions earlier on, and there's absence of sanction, and Chino Sonia is also looking at that cases where even INEC officials have, we've been told glaringly that INEC officials erred in their duties. Where are the sanctions? Abaka Musa also said it's as if INEC doesn't do a SWOT analysis after elections, or maybe they do a SWOT analysis, but the analysis seems not to be working. So what do you say to this particular?
I think it sounds more like a joke, but I'm serious. I think the leadership of INEC need to be taken to Zurich, the headquarters of FIFA, just for them to see what FIFA does with managing football. The sanction regime in FIFA, how referees operate, how players operate, the role of VAR in ensuring transparency when there are contestations about whether or not a particular team scored a goal. And I think that's the easiest thing to do, because one of the most strongest institutions in the world today is FIFA. Look at what happened to Nigeria, just in Libya. Upon return, the petition Nigeria wrote, and how fast and well FIFA issued that sanction. And everybody respected it. That's what INEC should do. If you don't have a sanction regime in place to deal with discontents arising from compromised processes and outcome, which falls squarely within the powers of INEC. It is unfortunate that INEC will preside over elections that will end up with hundreds of petitions. It shows that something is fundamentally wrong with INEC. Now, there are two sides to what INEC should do. The first is personal. The integrity and credibility of the individuals that make up INEC. And the second is the integrity of the institution called Independent National Electoral Commission. In 2009, when Obama visited Africa and went to Egypt, there's what is called the famous Cairo speech. And the speech was very simple. He said, Africa, you need strong institutions, not strong men. Unfortunately, we have strong men and women presiding over institutions that are critically weak. Not just weak, they are critically weak. And that has given outsiders the basis for defining our institutions as fragile. And when you call institutions fragile, it means they lack the capacity to perform. And from this question of performance, the question is, how has the performance of INEC impacted on the quality of elections, both in terms of the process of the elections, the outcome of the elections, as well as the fallout of election petitions? Because in most of these petitions, INEC is mentioned as the number one culprit.
All right, we'll still come to that election issue because I should also introduce one aspect. But right now we have a caller on the line. Let's quickly take the call. Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good morning. How are you?
This is Yaya Ndagi from Scotland area, Bida, Niger State.
Yeah, Ndagi from FCT?
It should be Niger.
Scotland area, Bida, Niger State.
Oh, Bida also. Oh, Bida people, you've taken over this today. All right, go on.
Okay, I just want to say categorically that the root cause of all this maneuvering is from the taking away, the politicians are, so the constitution are taking away the independence of the INEC itself. We call it Independent Electoral Commission, but it's not, INEC is no longer independent because of constitutionality provisions that are weakening the system. Just as the person has said now, we must go to the root cause of all this. Otherwise, we will only be monopoly and nothing will come out of it. If an election process is not right, cannot get right anything. The root of our problem. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think rather than saying the Constitution eroded the powers, rather it even strengthens INEC. It strengthens INEC. But the individuals that are supposed to utilize the constitutional powers as provided for are the ones that are causing the problem that we are dealing with. Now, we also need to appreciate the fact that INEC itself is not made up of ghosts, and that INEC is also operating within a highly politicized environment, and that this politicized environment, which the individuals that are working in INEC are part of, contributes to part of the problem we are witnessing across many of these communities. And it's the same way with the judiciary today, that people begin to buy justice, and because they buy justice, justice becomes expensive. It's out of the reach of poor people, and when you read, they say go to court because they know you don't have the money to even hire a son. There is virtually no case, election case, that non-sons are handling today. And in some instances, you find 20 sons on one case. How much does it take to even pay a son? So this is not something that a middle income earning individual
all right,
will look at.
Actually, when you're young, that you were talking about the constitution taken away, I thought it was talking about things like the who appoints INEC and so on and so forth, which makes them to be tied to another arm of government. But just before we go, really, so you have mentioned the issue of INEC always supporting a particular party in the court rather than trying to support their own election. Why you would look at that? I also wanted to consider to tell us what you consider to be the most critical electoral reform Nigeria must prioritize right now in order to strengthen the democratic framework ahead of the next general election.
No, I think the most important electoral reform that should happen is just to deliver credible elections. That's the reform. Once you do that, we've solved our problem, regardless of what you have. Once elections are conducted and people attest to the fact that that election was credible, free, and fair, then you've solved the problem. So that's where we start from.
All right, incidentally, this is where we have to call it a day on the program for today. I want to say a very, 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 very special thanks to our guest in the house, Professor Kwaja, Country Director, United States Institute of Peace. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.
All right, to you, our dear listener, I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Electoral Reform Hour, which was brought to you by Caring Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from the MacArthur Foundation. But I have to say this thanks to all those who are part and parcel of the program and the studio. Talking about the engineers of duty, Christy Ankeli and Hassan Guzman, the studio managers, Tijani Abdul and Sunday Oku. The supervisor of the program is Hussein Nakila, MNI, while the program was facilitated by Abu Grace and Jeremiah Kukume. On behalf of the producer of the program, Joy Ubi, we also want to especially thank the contributions from the founders, talking about MacArthur Foundation. We apologize for the pressure we could not take today, but of course the conversation continues next week, Thursday, same time, same station, where you can also continue the conversation on the X page, talking about PAACA_NG on X page. On behalf of the producer of the program, George Ubi, my name is Salem Akin, the studio anchor, saying have a good day. Bye for now.